I have,
I'm asking if there are any questions from anyone about anything we talked about or anything that you have read or considered.
this is Vermel. I have a question. When Sheldon was talking about the inner and outer ego, we're we're not to see them as separate as separate beings, right? It's one whole concept.
Right.
Okay.
You are a mom, right?
Yes.
You're also a sister, right?
Yes.
You're two different people.
No.
Okay, so that's pretty much the way it works. That there are avenues as an inside of you, or there are parts of you that you don't even pay attention to. And the ego is part of it. However, we were taught that we were to not control the ego, but to conquer it, because it was supposed to be a continuous battle. When in essence, it simply is a reference to how we respond to our environment, both spiritual as well as the human environment. Anyone want to add anything, or Vermeer, does that help you?
That helps me tremendously. There's a second part to this. So
Yeah.
then if our inner we have the inner and outer ego, are they our connectivity to being Elohim?
They are. The internal ego is spiritual. The external ego is human or animalistic.
Okay. Those are the physical things we bind our ego to.
Yes, because the external ego is conscious, which means that you're aware of it. The spiritual ego is subconscious. It deals with our subconscious, which means that we are not aware of it,
Right.
or we're becoming aware of those things that have been uh, lodged in our subconscious.
And we become aware of it when something resonates. That's our inner, that's our spiritual
Yes,
self-recognizing we are more than this physical being.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't chop that up. Anyone want to add anything to that? Please do so now. Okay. When Sheldon was speaking, he spoke about actually the construction of the human, or what is expected. I'm sorry, of the functionality of the human, because he was talking about the spiritual as well as the physical body. And the physical body houses the spirit, houses the image of Elohim. However, it also houses the tree of good and evil. And you have a choice. You can seek to understand what it means to be the image and likeness of our Creator, which gives us a view of who we are, or we can deal with things from our animalistic attitude and bring things, view our environment for the benefit of self, without regard to the direction that our Creator would have us to travel, and without regard to how we are to interact with each other, loving kindness, forgiveness, peace, those attributes. If we are simply engaged with loving kindness and forgiveness, etc., with our family only, then we are not fulfilling the functionality of being the image and likeness of Elohim. Any questions about that or comments?
Could you,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
the last part, then we are not fulfilling, could you go back and say that again, please, or explain that again?
That it's like being in your family. If you're only kind to your family, then you are not being expressive of the image and likeness of our Creator.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Ron? Or unless there are questions after Vermeil asks for that clarity. Go ahead, Ron.
I just listening to your explanation, I was reminded of a lesson Barbara did some time ago, where she talked about the scripture about being equally yoked, and we have always looked at that as being an external thing, as in marriage or a significant other, having the same faith or the same beliefs. But the way she tied it together and looked at it from the perspective of those, and if she's on, she can do a much better job of explaining this. But the equally yoked being that portion of you, your persona, or that characteristic in you that is animalistic or has to be brought under submission, and versus the spiritual side of you. So as long as you are battling with yourself, you are not yoked, and again, I hope she's listening and maybe she can clean this up. So that the balance is bringing that, physical man, the one that worries about the body and the external things, bringing it into submission to understand the higher self or the spiritual self, and being in submission to that. So when you talk about this, the egos, and I hope that's what it sounded like to me. I hope it's the same thing. That ego that we're describing is pretty much the same as just trying to find balance, trying to find allow the spiritual part of you, or the part that's searching for truth, to bring balance to who you are, and that, as he mentioned, the other voices or that community that's in you all comes under submission when you are able to do that. All become one voice when you're able to do that. And I hope I didn't murder it too bad. If Barbara's on, I don't know if she is, but if somebody may have remembered that lesson. Does that sound like what you were right?
Ron, you did fine. And just remember that the balance has nothing to do with everything being totally equal. Even if it's on the inside, working on the inside out, balance has to do with being bringing into submission those things that would try to overtake you, those negative things inside, those, like you said, those voices inside that will try to overtake you and overtake your sense of who you are, try to plant doubts in your mind, those kinds of things. Balance doesn't have to necessarily be like on what are those things that you ride up and down on the what's the seesaw. It has nothing to do with the idea of the seesaw, but it has everything to do with you putting into submission those voices inside yourself, because you can't talk about being equally yoked on the outside unless you start from the inside. Because from the Aramaic perspective, everything happens from the inside out, as I think you or Shell or several people have talked about in the past.
Thank you. Yeah. That sounds a lot like different wording, of course, but what Sheldon was talking about with the inner and outer ego. I think that ties together beautifully.
Thank you. Anyone else? I want to revisit something that I've taught several different times. I've spoken or referenced several different times. And that is the idea or the concept of being submissive to the spiritual or to the persona of Elohim. How does that work? Excuse me. How does that work? I think it is more of an act of accepting, embracing it. Why? Because Elohim, the attributes are with us anyway. And when we embrace who we are and how we were wonderfully and fearfully made, then I think it's more of an awareness than a submission to the community that's inside of us. We become aware of it because in our movement on our journey, we remember talks about voices inside of you. It was not deemed a community. Something was wrong with you in terms of your mental state. Now, I'm not saying that hearing voices cannot be indicative of being in a mental state where healing is necessary. But I am saying that we are just now beginning to come to grips with the community that's inside of us, and the community that's in us. Those voices are not voices like the audible voice. They are more impressions that we feel in terms of our emotions or in terms of decisions that we have to make. Any questions or comments about that? And Ron, is that along the lines that you were speaking also?
Yes, sir. And I was going to ask you that it sounds a lot too like what you described yesterday when you have an encounter with the ancestors. It is not an audible thing. It is an experience, and it is not confusing at all.
No, not at all.
Yeah, you know exactly where you are, and what I think is one of the bigger battles with that is we have been taught to believe that those voices are either evil or something's wrong with you, but they're there, and they're there for a reason, and we have kind of ignored it for hundreds of years, I suppose, and just now beginning to pay attention to it and see the benefits of listening and understanding.
Right. Anyone else?
Hey, Real.
Go ahead, Charles.
We're going to go back a little when when you were telling somebody that you just can't be good to your family members and you're not the same way to everyone. And the way I see it and the way Jesus had said it, and you can correct me to make it right. He said, let's say, he got sheep is not of this pasture. So that's about the same, he was telling them, not only for y'all, that what I do, I got sheep that's not of this pasture, but I still got to do for her. But you can dress it up and make it right.
Okay. That is the same thing, Charles. When Jesus spoke of having sheep who was not of that pasture, we also are in the same place where Jesus was, in that there are sheep who are religious to the extent that they would not want to hear anything we are talking about. However, when we put it in the macro, thoughts began to circulate within the minds of the people who are receiving from the macro. And when the sheep received those messages and began to raise questions about them, they are going to be shunned or told that they are demonically possessed or God didn't intend for us to know everything. But in keeping with what Charles brought up about Jesus, we are responsible, and we've taken that responsibility for everyone who exists on this globe. We've taken responsibility for that. So by doing that, we are acknowledging that we have sheep that are not of this pasture, and the we of whom I speak is anyone who understands who they are in terms of the embracing of Elohim. Does that help you, Charles?
Yes, sir. You cleared up real good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I have a comment. Since Charles asked that question about sheep of this pasture, I don't know what it was, somewhere, news, TV, something, there was this pasture somewhere. And all I saw was demonic kinds of things about him, because he was preaching to his congregation. I saw no love. I saw no empathy. He was talking about all of these demon Democrats. And I'd rather not have any demon Democrats in my church, demon Democrats. These demon Democrats who he put demon Democrats with the idea of abortion, the idea of immigration, the idea of the LGBTQ community, everything. It was almost a rage that I saw in him, but he couched that into his sermon. He was teaching preaching to his congregation. And it really just, I said, where's the love? And can no one in his congregation see this? So when Charles asked the question about that are not of this pasture, what I thought about was that everyone is inclusive in the pasture that Elohim chooses for those who are his. And it's totally opposite from this guy, whoever he was. That if you're a Democrat, it has nothing to do with God. Nothing. If you're a Democrat, that's just it. You're demon. Get out of his church.
Yes, I heard that.
Well, just likewise, this morning I saw this this archbishop, I guess, was ranting about Nancy Pelosi, and as long as she feels the way she does about abortion, he's going to refuse to give her communion. And I'm thinking, this is going too far. But again, it all has to be exposed.
Yeah.
So I just want that, Pastor. Go ahead.
He was teaching hatred. Think about it. When pastors in particular, regardless of denomination, or rabbi, or a priest or bishop, it doesn't matter. Those who are responsible or put themselves in a position of being responsible for the spiritual growth of the people who they cover. But when they project themselves as being God, yet they say that no man is God, and everything they say they attribute it to God, and have no scripture to back it up at all. When they are doing that, the people they eat it up. They allow it to become who they are. Why is that? Why does it happen like that? It happens like that because subconsciously this person is representing God, and he has to be telling the truth. Many of us on this phone have heard things from the pulpit, not the stuff that Barbara related or Ron, but we heard stuff from the pulpit that we embraced that had nothing to do with the scriptures, and that's one of the reasons there was such a struggle with coming into our own and embracing the reality of who we are. Think about the priest denying communion to Nancy Pelosi, and there are pastors who will talk about that, and they're real against that. But the question becomes, do you refuse communion from a woman or who's pregnant out of wedlock, or a girl, or either one, who's pregnant out of wedlock? Because I know pastors personally who will not give them communion until they come before the church and seek forgiveness. I know pastors who will not allow them to be a part of any auxiliary until they have repented. So this is not foreign to us. It's coming up, as Ron said, because it's within the purview of the things that we have to not only be aware of, but we have to embrace with love and kindness. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, it does. It makes sense.
Thank you. I want to address
just another comment, Pastor, before
okay,
you go to something different. In 2 Timothy 4, it talks about this time when people won't endure sound doctrine.
Yes.
But that after their own lust they'll heap to themselves teachers who preach what they want to hear through their itching ears. And so it just seems like it's not only the preaching and the teaching, but it's what people swallow whole from politicians, from whomever, because that's what they want to hear. And it's in your face so much now. So the Bible talks about in terms of those kinds of people are really, really learn so much more nowadays.
I agree with you 100%. That continues to happen because the church, the pastors, the bishops, all, and I can't say the church because the congregation is following what they deem to be their shepherd. So it's on the shoulders of those in leadership in those congregations. They have created a platform for what proves that you are spiritual. And what proves you are spiritual in the charismatic church is speaking in tongues. What proves that you are spiritual in the church settings of Christianity is shouting in the African church. And in the Caucasian church is when tears flow and you waving your hands. That has been defined as being caught up in the spirit. Yet, when you listen at the overwhelming majority, I would say 99% of the lyrics that are sung in those churches, in those spaces, you will not be able to justify them with the scriptures. You cannot reconcile what they're doing with the scriptures. Not only that, but you will never hear a song rendered on Sunday morning by the choir, by whomever, or the soloist. You will never hear a song about a man or a woman loving their spouse or significant other. You will never hear a song about romantic interactions in terms of loving somebody. I'm not talking about the crap, the mess that's out there that degrades. I'm talking about the songs that treat women with respect and how much they love them. When a man loves a woman, when Percy had first put that out there, that was a song that touched people's heart in a different way than the church does. But the church would not allow that song to be rendered in their congregation. No songs speak to any love for any human. It speaks of love. Jesus. I love Jesus like I love myself, but never speak of interpersonal relationships in that regard. Any questions about that? Or can you see that?
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right.
And I feel like that contributes to a weakness in relationships. The people who have put themselves in those positions has made every effort to define what church is, what Christianity is, what the Bible says, and that is the reason you will hear the same scriptures preached week after week, month after month, year after year. You're going to hear that revivals especially, you're going to hear that. Because I know for a fact that there are pastors who go home and they have a notebook, and they write in that notebook the churches where they preach different sermons, especially during revival. So if they go back to that church, they can make sure that they don't repeat a sermon. So where is the message from God in that? Where is the message from the Creator in that? What does it do to show you or show us where we are in terms of this journey? The only journey that they speak of is the journey to heaven when you die or to hell. That's it. And the Scripture does not even address those two things in the way that they are delivered from leadership in the different settings. Any questions or comments about that before I address the demonic thing? Okay. I dealt with a situation today in regard to someone who felt like demons were attacking them because of what was happening in their life. The reason it is easy for people to believe that they can be under attack by demons is because that's all they hear in their lessons or in the churches, especially in charismatic settings. I raised the question with the person because if you're talking about demons attacking you, then that means that you have some type of belief in a higher being, be it God or someone else. So I raised a question, and I raised it to everyone on this phone who teach other people or talk to other people about being demonically possessed. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm telling you, I've been there. I taught that. I believed that. And I do believe that people were brought back to their right mind, not because a demon left them, but because righteousness touched them. If Elohim lives in this body of ours, then how is it that something that Elohim never created live in your body also? When we talk about demonic possession, we are actually talking about confusion in the mind, and order needs to be brought to that mind because it needs healing. When we talk about demons attacking us, we are actually drawing the energy of negativity by virtue of how we speak and the things that we do in relationship to other people. I speak to selfishness, etc. As I think Kathy was talking about, whatever you put behind I am, that's what you are. So I am demonically oppressed because you're going through a period of depression, and you say I'm demonically possessed, or people tell you you're demonically possessed, and you embrace it, then that confusion, that demon becomes real to you. All because we have been taught to put our shortcomings on something other than us, other than the way we process, something other than how we think. Does that make sense to you guys? Or is that clear?
Makes sense to me.
Yes, please.
It makes sense. But Rhea, we was taught that before he can enter you, it comes to the mind first.
Yeah, you're right. I know you were taught that because I taught you. And I don't deny that I taught things that were not right. However, I did not hide from it when I saw things differently. I spoke up and said that I have been preaching from what I was told and what I heard, but not what I read. And I studied the scriptures, and I asked you guys who were in those congregations with me to follow me as I follow God. So I don't deny what Charles is saying at all, because I'm one of the people who taught it and believed it wholeheartedly. Now, where I am in terms of the journey, I am seeing it for what it is. And I had to take that journey in order to get to where I am in terms of the space that I occupy now along this journey. I had to come through that. All of us had to come through that, because you cannot bring order to disorder if you don't know what disorder looks like. You cannot change the environment in a spiritual way if you don't know what's going on in that environment that's a threat to humanity. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Comments? Okay. Are there any questions or comments about anything right now? The Q&As on Mondays used to be active, but I do believe that the reason we are not getting questions like we once were is because it's resonating with people and they trust what resonates with them. I do believe it's like we are, as the facilitators are with each other. We know if one of us says something, we know that is well researched. We don't even have to look at it anymore. We can be assured that we can speak the same thing in teaching and not have to worry about being wrong about it, or not having to be concerned about having to defend it. I do believe that that's where a lot of you are now, in a state of contemplation. And that's a good place to be, because when you are in a state of contemplation, you begin to see choices that you have. You begin learning how to discern what you are experiencing, whether it's from the ancestors or not. Those simple things, or things that seem simple, that come to us when we talk about the idea of knowing the police down the road because we felt it. That is the energy that's being what? That energy is coming to us, not just to show us that a policeman is down the road, but it's also there to teach us what it feels like to have that experience with the guidance of the energy sources that we depend on to extend our wisdom, understanding, and our knowledge. And when we embrace that, what we find is that we grow from that space into different spaces, and we sit with problems or issues, and we realize that they are not problems, they are opportunities. And that's the kind of guidance that brings about change in the earth consciousness. The people who are teaching have to be honest, regardless of how it comes out. You have to tell the truth. And we have seen that one question can lead to weeks of discussions. We have experienced the teachings of the 10 utterances of the prayer that Jesus talked to his disciples about. We have taught that many, many times, and every time we do that, we see a different layer. And we come to a place where it becomes more and more our existence, or responsible or part of our existence. Right now, I don't know how to express it, but it exists in us. And when we allow it to exist in us, it is then that we begin to become the mirror image of our Creator. And that mirror image is not what your face looks like. It's what you exude. And what I mean by that is people will come to you and tell you all their problems and you don't even know them. People will come to you and tell you what they're caught up in because they don't want to tell their leadership. So it is the image of Elohim that draws that to you. And you, being human, have empathy for the one who is going through this, and you remind them that they're going through. All of that is the energy of Elohim, the image of Elohim that we are expressing. Questions, comments? Okay. So, when we must be willing to look at the hard things, because the easiest thing is to continue the journey that we were on. However, now it's not, we can't do that. We can't continue that journey because it doesn't exist anymore. I feel like what has taken place is, as I travel this journey, everything behind me is being erased. And the erasure of everything behind me tells me that there is nothing to go back to. If there are no questions or no comments, I'm done, because I'm not going to keep you here just to keep you here. I'm going to delve deeper into melanin. And in doing so, I don't have to ask you to research it with me, because you're going to do it anyway. That's just who we are. So at this juncture, I'm going to bid you a good evening and say farewell for now. because,
Pastor,
sir,
before we close, can I say something?
of course, yes.
I want to. I kind of feel something that I want to express, and that kind of hit me, and it's an eye opener to me. And you've pretty much talked about most of it. But Sheldon said something yesterday that just turned on a light for me. And me back up a little bit. I don't know if I'm becoming more sensitive to what I see on TV or hear, or if things have increased, but it seems like we're seeing more violence and killings and shootings and things now, and things are being more violent than, I read something this morning about somebody at a funeral, and somebody driving by shooting at people at a funeral, and just crazy stuff. A young man beat his grandmother to death the other day, just crazy stuff. And we have been taught in the past, or maybe not taught, but just in our religious setting, to just pray for things, and it makes you feel helpless. It makes you feel like there's nothing more that you can do. But I think we're at that place now. We have absorbed a lot from the universe in the last couple of years, and this is nothing new. But Sheldon said yesterday, when you're looking at wars and deaths and things like that, he said, don't concentrate on that. Concentrate on your love for peace. And that sounds so simple, but that is the how-to. That is the strength. That is the opportunity that Pastor just mentioned. We are not helpless. And what I see, why I think I'm becoming more sensitive, is the universe is showing us these opportunities. So what my concentration is on who I am and what I am transitioning to or have become, a recognition of what it means to be human, a recognition of what it means to be Elohim, and embracing that. And not forgetting the love, the forgiveness, the peace, and let that be my concentration. Because we're seeing a lot of things, as Barbara mentioned, and some of the conversations tonight, the stance that the church is taking in several areas. All of this is in our face for a reason. And we're at the place now that all the things that we are learning, and we're still learning, and our eyes are still being opened. But we're at the place now where we recognize that the sign, to me anyway, the sign is you're seeing all this to show you that you are one with the universe. And when we say we're resonating, this resonates with me, and I feel the rhythm, then that rhythm is the love and the peace and all these things that we've become. And that is the weapon. That is the weapon of choice. And as we concentrate on that, as we see those things and recognize who we are, and not let those voices talk us out of it, then let us work together. Let us be one. And the memories and all the things you've understood, and being in touch with that feeling, that voice, that inner peace that is in you, let all that come together. I think we're at that place. That's what I feel, and I hope you feel that way as well. But let's concentrate on who we are, and the peace and the love and the forgiveness that we've been talking about here for so long. Okay?
Thank
That
you.
makes sense?
It does indeed. It does. I something came to me when you were talking. However, I want to leave you with what Ron just expressed, and we can talk about abortion and how it affects us later. But I want to leave you with what Ron said. Those words, let them resonate, and you don't have to remember every word he said. Simply embrace it. Thank you. Are there any questions about what Ron said so he can amplify anything that he said if need be? Thank you. No questions? No comments? Are there? Okay, guys.
Thanks.
Have a great evening. And we look forward to coming together again on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a good
Thank
evening.
you.
Everybody.